It's 60 seconds before midnight, and for those that have failed to go through the tribulations of the lands between, there is one individual in the world of Elden Ring that is considered to be so powerful that using him as your main character is only done as a last resort, really. The Unholy God Fist is a powerful pugilist with mysterious ties to the Lord of the Blood. It is rumored that the God Fist's direct connection to the Guardian of Mikola's cocoon has granted him some kind of preferential treatment, let's say, for quickly accessing the shadow of the Erdtree. How? Well, while some have to work all their lives to get to the position they want to get to, the God Fist was born with all its skills and talents right from the get-go. It is widely believed that it is an incarnation of something very powerful. When nothing clicked for you, you resort to the unholy to break the game in ways that are not comprehensible to the human brain. Don't believe me? Well, practically right from the gates of character creation, it becomes apparent that this is no ordinary build. When observing how the God Fist engages with Margit, the damage is ridiculous for a completely bland and new character. He is not even bothering to dodge. As you see, this fighter mingles with fire and uses fire to set his own fists ablaze. Doing so grants him a huge advantage in any fight, as it causes him to do a bunch of extra damage. The God Fist then also has insane DPS to quickly deal with his enemies while breaking their bones one by one and causing them to bleed out. Everything you just observed was with no levels, no upgrades, no flask of wondrous physic, no buffs, no nothing. And in the sequence that you just saw, Margit was stance broken twice and thus critically hit twice, lost a bunch of his blood for juicy quick damage, and was the victim of continuous streams of powerful fire punches right in his gut and face for ultimately bonkers damage so early on. But how is something like that even possible, do I hear you asking? Well, you can get the spiked case 2s in 2 seconds. What you just do is go to the hidden teleporter behind the Third Church of America to get to Dragon Barrow and then travel to the isolated merchant. The spiked case 2s cost 4k runes, so maybe not literally 2 seconds, but thankfully right next to where we teleported to, you can farm the militias. Since the area beneath the Bestial Sanctum is ridden with these guys in fact, and they give 1000 runes each. Stance break them and crit them like this for a quick 1000 runes per kill. Even if you just came from the character creation screen, you can farm these guys quite consistently and quite easily. Then buy the spiked case 2s, put them on, and without even meeting the requirements to wield them, you can already start destroying everything. But make sure to get that dexterity requirement as well. Yes, this is not a dexterity build, but yeah, we need to invest that point into dexterity. I know. Also, obtain Flaming Strike while you're at it. It's the Ash of War that I used versus Margit. This is an absolute amazing Ash of War, and especially with this weapon, that is going to give you an insane power spike early on. And best thing is, it's an open world drop that you can get very easily in Caelid as well. Flaming Strike does a few very important things for getting our build online within literal minutes. One, when you apply it at the smith, your fist will now also start dealing 50% more fire damage, and the total attack rating is going to be much higher than going any other affinity, like heavy at this point in time. Two, when you actually use it, it will put your fists ablaze. Now, does that look cool or does it look cool? But setting your fists ablaze gives you another 90 fire damage extra. Yes, it is a buff. And if you're not familiar with fists, if you two-hand them, you will actually wield a fist in each hand, so we're getting double the goodness. And the third reason, the first part of the Flaming Strike Ash of War is actually a great AoE tool as well, that will supplement this build very well in the early parts. Those annoying bats, well, it absolutely wrecks them. And with an AoE component, our build is complete. You already saw the destruction versus Margit, what it then looks like to use this combination just right from the get-go. And I would also highly recommend to grab the Blue Dancer Charm as your first talisman. As with the Pugilist Life, where you obviously wear no armor, we can make good use of this talisman. Also, the boss in the High Road Cave where you obtain said talisman gets completely annihilated by your setup, which is fun to look at this grid. The Blue Dancer Charm works very well to like 8.4 to say 10 equipped weight, as afterwards it will start to dip harder and we will definitely be set underweight, giving us a nice boost to our damage. Now obviously you can go ahead and just destroy everything right away with this setup, but if you want to get some extra power as well, I would highly recommend killing Rail with a golden pickled foul foot, and then put all the runes you will get from this dragon as well as the runes from Margit in Vigor, and it will make you reach 40 Vigor right off the bat, which is the first soft cap, giving you insane sustain. And since we already have great damage, it is a great choice here to do so, and put the rest then in strength. After that, we can really make the build even stronger by picking up the spiked crack tier for our flask of wondrous physic, which gives us a boost to our charged attacks. Killing Margit then also granted us a second talisman slot, and we pick up the Winged Sword Insignia here for said slot. This talisman is an amazing pick with how insanely fast our normal attacks are, as well as our charged attacks. We can quickly get that 3rd tier 10% attack power increase this way. Then to make this really broken, you can go ahead and pick up both Smithing Stone, Minor, Bell Bearings 1 and 2 at these locations. They are both accessible right out of Limgrave, and you only have to defeat the Crystallion, which is a very easy fight with this setup. As a boxer, you make this blue weirdo look like a complete joke. And after that, you can upgrade your fists to plus 12 right away, and if you need more runes, just farm the Malicious again, this time with your K2s. It is not that expensive to buy the stones and then upgrade your fists. Finally, you go ahead and grab the Flaming Shroud and Cracked Tear as well, which you get from defeating the Putrid Avatar in Caelid. It will be an easy fight with them being weak against fire damage, so you can stance break this boss quickly and spiral the fight out of control in your favor. And after that, you will get the Flaming Shroud and Cracked Tear 2 to fill up our flask. And our Flask of Wondrous Physic is now done, giving us extra damage and utility in combat. And now if you fight Godric, you will completely destroy him, obviously. Godric has a weird body structure, however, so jump attacks here are quite effective to hit his upper body until you make it to phase 2. Then you can just smash him into a pulp very quickly. Just stick to him, get as much damage in, and fun fact is that not only do your fists build up great poise damage, your Ash of War also deals 15 stance damage when you use it, and that obviously combines very well. And then with the Bloodlust proc as well, it is a quick kill. Just like versus the Radican Wolf, it goes very fast now. Even if you can't stick onto this dog with your normal attacks, you can just use jump attacks here for a quick kill. Moongram then goes fast. Even attack him through his parry with your absolute mind-boggling DPS. And Renella, well, let's just say, phase 1 you go nuts, you go hyperactive mode. Phase 2, it is another easy kill. Just stick to her, you can get a lot of damage in quickly, and ultimately you will stance break her, and it's over. The party is over. But the party for us has just started, because we can get the 3rd talisman. Pick up the Axe talisman here, since we're going to be using a lot more charged attacks from now on. Versus Radahn, I just want to mention that the weakness of fists can be their range, since sometimes you'll even miss when you're right on top of your target. It is usually versus enemies like Radahn or the Beast Clergyman that have a weird body structure and have a bigger upper body than a lower body. So in those cases, it might be very useful to not use the lock on to the target option, and in the case of Radahn, just go nuts with normal attacks while not being locked on. You can get some insane DPS going like that, and with how we've built our boxer with sustain, you can DPS right through his counter hits if you want to trade. The trades will be very favorable in your advantage, and then you will melt Radahn's HP bar like it's nothing, especially with your Bloodlust procs on top of your normal damage. Now after Radahn, you can obviously just annihilate everything with these spiked K2s in Caelid, Liurna, Limgrave, wherever you want to go, but you can also go to the capital to get something even better already. Yes, how is that possible, I hear you asking? Let me just show you quickly. Just rush to the capital in that case if you want to do this option. Get 12 Faith and 10 Arcane at some point during this journey and destroy the Draconic Tree Sentinel guarding the capital. This Draconic Tree Sentinel can usually be maybe intimidating if you go very early to the capital, but in this case you can stance break him over and over and over and over, and you can yet again make quick work of him, granting you access to the capital. Before we enter the capital, make sure to be subscribed to me, like the video, do all that stuff, you know how it works, and check out my Patreon if you want to support me or if you want written guides of my builds instead. Thank you either way. When you enter the capital, you can then pick up the Star Fists very easily at the left side of the Colosseum. Now the spiked K2s is essentially a budget Star Fist, and I'm not saying that to discredit the spiked K2s because you already saw how good it is, especially for something that you get so incredibly early on. But that statement is rather a testimony of how absolutely insane the Star Fists are. Going forward, we're going to be a pure strength build, like with the spiked K2s, but we will now use the heavy affinity on our Star Fists as well. Then we can start using Bloodflame Blade on our Star Fists, which adds a bunch of Bloodlust buildup to quickly proc Bloodlust on our enemies, and for enemies that are immune to losing their blood or have a very high Bloodlust threshold, like for example Godfrey, the Elden Lord, we use Crackblade. So let's say, since we're in the capital, the Godfrey Shade, which is immune to losing blood, and Margot, which isn't. We use the Bloodflame Blade for Margot and Crackblade for the Godfrey Shade. When you compare both fights and our options, you then see how absolutely amazing this will make our build, because we have an option for both types of enemies and we completely dwarf both bosses. as you see the damage gets nuts. Whether there's a blood loss proc or just the extra physical damage, this side-by-side comparison shows how good both options are. It is simple, Morgoth and the Godfrey Shade both stand no chance against us. While Bloodflame Blade adds a bunch of blood loss on both of your fists, Cracked Blade gives you 10% extra stance breaking damage and 15% extra physical damage. The Star Fists, like the spiked K2s, come with innate blood loss buildup and deal a lot of physical damage and stance breaking damage as well. So both options in terms of what we apply to our fists make these fists extremely powerful. In the fight with the Fire Giant, it becomes even more apparent how powerful these fists are. Especially their charged attacks are a nuclear type of attack, so you really want to capitalize on these types of attacks with the Star Fist. And the first blood loss proc comes insanely fast too, and all these components considered together will result into a very deadly mix and build. While the Fire Giant phase 2 continues in the background, I just want to mention that we don't use the Flame Shrouding Cracktier anymore because we don't have fire damage in our build anymore. So we swapped that out of the Flask of Wondrous Physic and now fully focus on charge damage, so we keep the Spike Cracktier in the flask, but also now add the Stone Barb Cracktier, which will make our stance breaking damage even better with another 30% increase to said stat. So we will have a really good flask now going forward. Now apparently a majority of the players never actually bothered to defeat Mohg, the gatekeeper of the DLC, so if you want to turn on him as the God Fist for access to the Shadow of the Erdtree real fast, it's incredibly easy. This is probably the easiest build to do so with, as Mohg is both incredibly susceptible to blood loss and getting stance broken at the same time, and the way he attacks is that a lot of his attacks will miss you when you are right in front of him, punching the ever-living sacredness out of him. It's the easiest kill of your life really, and like I said, you get both types of fists insanely fast. So there you go, access to the DLC. The Godskin duo, you might think 2 versus 1, does the build still hold up? The answer is an absolute yes, because you can use the stance break into the iframes you get from the critical hit to completely ignore the other Godskin, and it will on average only take 2 charge attacks to stance break them if you do these attacks in quick succession. I would probably start with the big boned one to avoid his attack where he starts rolling around the arena, and after you kill one, you can still keep punching in the area with the grey remains where they died for extra damage. While the Godskin duo fight continues in the background, I just want to talk about the final talisman setup real quick. So we still use everything from the earlier parts except for upgrading the Winged Sword Insignia to the Rotten Winged Sword Insignia, which has exactly the same mechanic but with an even higher percentage. Then the 4th talisman slot is going to be flexible, but I do really like the Dagger Talisman here for the 17% extra damage to critical hits, since as you have so far seen, we will stance break our enemies over and over. If at any point in time you struggle staying alive, then swap out the Blue Dancer Charm for the Dragon Crest Great Shield Talisman for an insane boost to your defenses, and just wear armor. I didn't bother with armor since obviously we're a boxer, and have you ever seen a boxer with armor? No, so the Blue Dancer Charm is what I like here, but obviously defense is another useful thing to invest in if necessary. As you see in the background, we're also fighting and obliterating Gideon now. What you really want to do versus Gideon is just stick onto him for a clean and quick kill. He will drink a potion, but it doesn't matter. Versus the Beast Clergyman and Malekith, it's another very easy fight. However, as mentioned earlier, be wary for the hitbox. It can be very annoying versus the Beast Clergyman in particular, but getting the stance break only takes about 2 to 3 charged hits, however, and I would actually go for the critical hit here. If you end up in the Malekith fight with a critical hit, then you end up on the other side of the arena, which is kinda annoying for preserving momentum. So what you do is wait till he recovers and use that for a charge attack instead. This way in phase 2, you will get the stance break quite fast, as the poise damage stacking transfers over in fact, and the second Malekith gets stance broken, the fight is already over with all the damage that you can do in that moment, as well in the moments that he's trying to recover. Before we proceed to claiming the Elden Throne for ourselves, I just want to show you how insane this build gets versus the hardest boss in the game, Malenia. You can completely stun lock her out of the fight if you pace your attacks well. Basically, you can stance break her with 2 charged attacks in quick succession over and over, so pay attention to your stamina bar and make sure it's filled for a good portion before engaging in the 2-hit 2 charged attack combo. And after that, you can loop it into a 2 charge attack stance break critical hit combo while building up a bunch of blood loss at the same time. All of that will then result into you taking 0 damage, as you have already seen in the intro, while completely annihilating Malenia and doing absolutely nuclear damage. In phase 2, you really want to capitalize on those recovery moments of Malenia, so pretty much instantly you can already go ham. Make sure to do that when she starts getting up pretty much post her Flower Dive Bomb. I missed the first attack as you saw, so there's some leeway here I would say, but after that you can do what you did in phase 1, but yet again in phase 2. Stun lock, do insane DPS and proc blood loss, and all of that combined is a very deadly cocktail. Try to also lure out her dive attack yet again, which she will do as she nears that 30% HP threshold, which you probably can get with the first stun lock sequence, and then just rinse and repeat for a very consistent and insane phase 2 clear as well. Then for the final bosses of the game, I would highly recommend using Cracked Blade, since Godfrey has a very high blood loss build up threshold, and Redican and the Elden Beast are just straight up immune, but here you definitely see the power of Cracked Blade. It's an insane alternative option, and really you can't go wrong with either the Bloodflame Blade or Cracked Blade, and as you see, we're just completely stomping Godfrey, and then after that Horaloo into the ground. This is easily one of the best builds of all time, there's really no denying that. It is just the insane control that you get aside from the damage and stance breaking. It's like you're just controlling these big bosses like they're your little puppet. Redigan, again, easy story, few hits, he gets stance broken, and by then you've already won really, because it's pretty much you just spiraling your advantage out of control. You get a lot of momentum, then you build up even more momentum, and by the time you know it, Redigan is already dead. The Elden Beast then, well, let me just let the footage speak for itself. So we went over talismans and our Flask of Wonders physic already earlier in the video, and I touched the America statue at around level 100 with these stats. For a level 125 and a level 150 build, optimizing the build is very easy. Starting class does not matter whatsoever, go 80 strength and 60 vigor. You can already fully soft cap on both of these stats at level 125 or even before that and have everything you need really. Then for a level 150 build, just put enough points in Faith till you get like 33 Faith. This will unlock Flame Grant Me Strength at 15 for extra damage and stamina regen, Golden Vow at 25 for extra damage and defenses, Black Flame Protection at 30 for a huge defensive body buff, and Howl of Shibriri for even more offensive power at 33 as an alternative body buff, giving you a bunch of different buffs and options that are all very useful in combat. Now with this build you don't need a single buff really, it is so good, you don't have to worry about all that stuff, but if you're already higher level and need to be efficient, then the Faith investment will be a really nice option. And put any remaining points in Endurance for some extra stamina and equip load. With that, you now know everything you need to know to become the Unholy God Fist. Use your power wisely though. If today's power falls in the wrong hands, well, I'm not to blame. Just saying.